Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. And today we are talking about a subject that has been really bothering me. And I have debated whether or not to discuss this subject. And I have made the decision that I'm going to discuss this with you. Before we get started on today's episode, I do want to make something perfectly clear. We are going to be talking about baby formula. I am not a doctor. I'm not a pediatrician. You need to speak to your pediatrician. You need to be honest with your pediatrician and tell them exactly what you are going through, what your needs are. And if you find this information, my story, what I did, if you find this interesting or helpful to you, talk to your pediatrician. I cannot emphasize that enough. This is my story. This is what happened to me. If you learn something from this, that's great, but I am only telling you what happened to me. So you can do with it what you want, but it is your responsibility to talk to your pediatrician. Now that I've said that about 5 different times and in 5 different ways, let's get started. Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead. Come along with us on our journey from a small suburban homestead lifestyle to our new lifestyle, homesteading in the rural countryside of southern Arizona. We'll share with you our tips, tricks, successes, and failures from both our past suburban lifestyle to our new rural lifestyle, all on the 2 Acre Homestead. So back in 2019, I became a mom. Now, full disclosure, I am an older mom. I became a mom in my 40s. I'm not a young mom, but that's okay. Our oldest son, we adopted him. And he was born in 2019, way before the pandemic hit. And to put a very long story about his adoption, I don't want to go into his adoption, the why, and all of the background, because at this particular point, he is our child. End of story. But we did adopt him, and so he's had a long fight for such a little man. He's had a lot of things to deal with. When we started the adoption process with him, he came with problems, as you can guess. He came with one of the problems that he has is, I say this in air quotes, he has a lactose intolerance. You're going to find out very quickly in this story, I don't believe in lactose intolerance, but we'll go with that term for right now. So he came with formula. And if you know anything about baby formula, he was on Alimentum. So that's kind of the gold standard of baby formula. And he also came with WIC, Women, Infant, Children. And for those of you who are not in the country, because I do see a lot of you. There's a significant number of you that listen to the podcast who are not in the United States. Women, Infant, and Children is basically a government program that supports or subsidizes food and the availability of food for women, infant, and children who maybe are in a situation where they can't afford food. They are in the adoption process. They're in the legal system, a host of reasons. But pretty much that's what that system is. So our son came with both of those things, with the Alimentum and with WIC. So a couple months went by and we were really close to our adoption point at the adoption date at this point, excuse me. And if you know anything about this, as we got closer and closer, what was happening is that the Department of Child Safety was kind of loosening and loosening and loosening because, we were just about ready to adopt him. Up to that point, Department of Child Safety had dictated everything that we needed to do, from, dictating whether or not he was going to be vaccinated, when he would be vaccinated, how we participated in the WIC program, and how much formula. I would have to meet with them and tell them how much formula I gave him. It was a whole thing. So, but as we were going through the adoption process and we got closer and closer to, finalizing our adoption, especially, I'll just leave it that, as we got closer to finalizing our adoption, they kind of got really lax. And that gave me a moment to breathe. And, I'm just going to be honest with you. As a new mom, I kind of was scared stiff, just scared stiff that, you have to do this with him and that with him and this and that and this and that. And it was like, oh my God, okay. Yeah, okay. I have to do this and I have to do that. And now we have this thing called COVID happening. So this is summertime, getting close to summer. Actually, it's about this time of year. June 2019 is about that time. And I start looking at the back of the bottle, the back of the can, I should say, for the Alimentum. And I'm starting to really pay attention to the ingredients. And I'm like, the first thing that was listed was high fructose corn syrup. I saw that. And the next doctor's appointment I went to, I talked to my pediatrician about this at length. And I told her, I said, this doesn't make any sense. We are feeding him this, formula, this baby formula, and the first ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. If you give me, and I remember saying this to her, I'm like, if you give me a bunch of sugar, I'm not going to be right either. I'm going to be bouncing off the walls too. And we're feeding him a bunch of sugar and expecting him to make progress. How can he make progress when his body is fighting all of this inflammation and all of the sugar? It's not right. She looked at me and she said that she agreed. She knew exactly how I felt, and she felt the same way. Now, my pediatrician, I still have her as my pediatrician, or she's my kid's pediatrician, but she kind of kept her voice low because she's one of 6 doctors in that doctor's office. And she's like, if you really want to get something that's healthy for them, you probably would have to get something from Germany. But how you would get that shipped, she goes, I don't even know how that would work. So that sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to get this kid off of Alimentum, off of baby formula. In the meantime, and in between time, we were dealing with a situation because of COVID. And now I have this infant. Well, at that time, he would have been like 7 months, 6 or 7 months at that time, something like that, around that time. And, COVID is starting, everybody's scared, to even go to the store, everybody wear your face mask, wear this, do that. And then I had to meet with WIC, the WIC representative, and, our son was slowly, he was at a point where he could start eating some solid foods. And so she's like, well, and I remember this, the lady at WIC, she's like, well, we can have him on this amount of food, solid food, and they were going to subsidize non-organic baby food. And of course they were going to subsidize the Alimentum. And so I talked to her and I said, I've talked to my pediatrician about this. I'm having a problem with the fact that we're feeding him this, high fructose corn syrup. I want another option. There's nothing that you can do. I remember her saying that. There's nothing you can do. This is the best formula out in the market for him. That was the worst. Actually, no, it wasn't the worst, but it was the best thing she could have done. It was the best thing anybody could have done, because I marched out of that office and I said to myself, I am never, ever going to let anybody subsidize food for my son. My son is not going to consume any of this stuff. So I decided by this point, we have now, this is like August or something like that. And he's legally ours. We've adopted him. And I ripped that Alimentum, that baby formula, out of that kid's diet as soon as I could. And I started feeding him milk. Now, some of you are going to have a heart attack when I say this, and I may even get some hate mail for this. I don't know. But I started feeding him raw milk from a trusted source, but raw milk. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I just started, I did my homework, I did my research, and I just started putting vitamins, different things like iron, just fortifying that milk. I figured that is a heck of a lot better for him than the high fructose corn syrup that the government was subsidizing. And so I did. And that kid is alive and well today and doing fabulous. My husband and I could visually see the difference in him when we took him off of that high fructose corn syrup junk that they call baby formula and put him on something that his body knew what to do with. When it came to baby food, we took our homegrown vegetables as much as we could. We also bought organic vegetables and vegetables from farms, pureed it, and that was his food. So let's see here. Then something fantastic happened. Brother came on the scene. So late 2020, late 2020 going into 2021, we had our second son. Took him to the pediatrician. And of course, by this point, now she knows where I stand on several things. And had a hard time. I could not. It's a very long story, and I really don't want to get into the details of it because I just don't. But I could not breastfeed our second son. I could not breastfeed him at all. So he just couldn't latch. And plus he had a surgery in his mouth with his tongue. He had a problem with his tongue. And that just totally just blew out of the water breastfeeding. Plus I just, it just was a whole thing. So anyway, it didn't work. And so it was back to, you guessed it, formula. I am sitting with this newborn in my arms, bawling my eyes out. I mean, just whether it be a lack of sleep, hormone imbalance, I don't know what it was, but I mean, it just could be everything above. I wanted so much for him to be breastfed, but it just didn't happen. And I was bawling my eyes out, crying, telling her, I don't know what to do. It'll be I'm never putting him on formula. I mean, just like never. And I told her what I had done with our oldest son when he started transitioning to solid food. The previous year, he started, I started taking him, I took him off of the Alimentum and put him on raw milk. And she looked at me and she says, why didn't you tell me? And I said, I was scared. I said, because the way I was treated with WIC, the way the whole medical system operates, especially with children, it's like you have a mother's instinct, you have a mother's intuition. That is not good enough for the medical community. I knew that Alimentum was tearing that kid up. I knew it was doing the worst harm, more harm than what his biological parents had done or his biological mother had done in utero. Tearing him up. But as soon as I put him on the raw milk, he started catching up. He started doing better. So I told her, it was like a confession time with my pediatrician. And I told her what I had done, and I told her what I wanted to do with my youngest. And she looked at me and she says, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you say anything about raw milk. She said, because technically she says, scientifically, we're supposed to say that, he can't have raw milk. That's dangerous. She says, but so is walking across the street, because statistically, for all of you who are about to say something about raw milk, you are more likely to get into a car accident, statistically, than you are to get sick from raw milk. People have been drinking raw milk for thousands of years. Thousands of years. It's only been here recently, and when I say recently, the past 50 years, that people are like, raw milk's not good for you. Raw milk's not good for you. Raw milk, you can get sick. I just had somebody recently tell me that, I would be scared to give my kids raw milk because, I wouldn't trust the cleanliness of the farmer. Let me tell you something.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to build a homestead from the ground up? Or maybe you're looking to build an off-grid dream home, a vacation home, or maybe just a piece of land to call your own. Visit yourcheapland.com to buy rural land in the wide open spaces of southwestern United States. When you visit yourcheapland.com, they're here to help you, and with their help, you can do this. You can take your dream of owning land and make it a reality. Most down payments are only $294, including the document fee. Remember, everyone qualifies for financing at yourcheapland.com. Head on over to yourcheapland.com and start making those dreams come true. And now, back to our podcast. They wouldn't be selling it if the risk is more on the farmer than it is on the consumer. If they sell you a product that you're getting sick off of, they're going to be out of business, and that's not what they want. So more than likely, they're practicing clean farming. And if you have a problem with it, or if you have a question with it, go to the farm. Ask to go see. I did. I asked, can I go see your farm? Can I go see how you milk? Absolutely, you can. You can see it from a distance, but you can see it because there's laws. Cleanliness is one of them. But yes, they were like, yeah, absolutely, you can. And so we did. But the point is that getting back to my pediatrician, so she was like, technically I'm not supposed to tell you, or I'm supposed to tell you that you should never feed a child raw milk. But, statistically, you're more than likely to get into a car accident than you or your child being damaged by any pathogens that are in raw milk. That being said, and I remember this, and I'm kind of semi-quoting her, she said to me, let me help you with the mixture. Let me repeat myself just so that you are perfectly clear. I had a confession moment with my pediatrician, told her how I had taken my eldest son off of baby formula. And since I couldn't nurse my youngest son, I told her what I was planning to do was to feed him raw milk fortified with iron and liquid vitamins. And she said to me, let me help you with the right mixture for him. And she did. She told me the right amount of iron, the right amount of B vitamins, the right amount of D3, the right amount of different things that were specific for him that he needed. And my child, my youngest son, is a stocky little 20-month-old kid who can run. Literally, he runs circles around us, quite literally. Smart as a button, has a vocabulary. His vocabulary is more He has more words than my eldest son, and they're only a year apart. He is healthy, never been sick except for one time, and that was just here recently. And we think he was sick because he had an ear infection because he's teething. That's it. So the reason I'm telling you guys this story, and I'm directing this to you moms out there, or you grandmothers out there who have sons and daughters who have children, young kids who need formula. And I'm not talking about special needs kids. If your child is, needing to be fed in a tube, I'm not talking about that. That's a whole different thing. But what I am encouraging you all to tell them is to talk to your pediatrician. Don't be afraid to go in and say, look, this is the problem I'm having. I can't find formula. Can I make my own homemade formula for my child? If so, what are the ingredients that I need to put in that child's milk to keep him healthy and to help him grow, or her? I personally think now that, I don't have anybody that's, my kids are beyond that now. But, for you moms out there, you new moms, you young moms, you moms with really, really littles who need the formula, just remember you're more likely to help them by being honest with your pediatrician. Look for alternative ways of feeding your children outside of baby formula. And if at all possible, stay away from that stuff. Listen, there's only 2 or 3 baby formula manufacturers in the United States. And this is where I get as mad as a fire ant over this. Let me tell you, because there's only 3 of them here in the United States. And the Women, Infant, Children program that's subsidized by the government, when every year they have these 3 companies bid, they go with the lowest bidder. And guess what? The lowest bidder is going to use what? They're going to use what is subsidized, ingredients that is subsidized by the government. High fructose corn syrup, which is corn, is subsidized by the government. Subsidized, meaning the government has paid these farmers to grow this, and they are selling it at a discounted price. This is not good for kids. Children do not need to be on high fructose corn syrup. Adults don't need to be on high fructose corn syrup. If you see the damage that it does to most of us adults, just imagine what it's doing to your children. And this is all subsidized. And for the Women, Infant, Children program, it's really terrible how they dictate how much food your child will consume. I find it really, really sad. When my husband and I, we just told them, we're removing this child from your program. And they were like, okay. We found such great freedom and having the say-so of, I want my child to eat nothing but homegrown food or organic food. It was so liberating and freeing. We weren't tied to some agency that only looks at your child as a number and telling you what you can and cannot feed your child. You're the parent. You're the mother. You have your intuition. Follow your mother's instinct, especially when it comes to feeding the children, feeding our kids. Follow your instincts. Talk to your doctor, please. These shortages that we see going on right now in baby formula, these shortages, they really don't have to affect the majority of the kids who are consuming baby formula. If you could just get yourself into your pediatrician and get some education on how to create your own baby formula. It's possible. I did it, and I never, ever looked back. So I hope this gives you guys some inspiration, food for thought for sure. And like I said, this is my story. This is what happened to me. This is not necessarily going to be something that fits your circumstances. But before you haul off and do anything, talk to your pediatrician. Because your pediatrician can really help you with, creating a program, a food program, formula. He or she may have other options. You just don't know until you open your mouth. So that's it from me and my family here. So from our homestead to your homestead, stay safe out there and happy homesteading.